जागेश्वराय। ओम 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 जागेश्वराय। विश्वेश्वराय। ओम 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 रामेश्वराय। ओम रामेश्वराय। ओम रामेश्वराय। ओम रामेश्वराय। ओम रामेश्वराय। ओम रामेश्वराय। शिव 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 नमः शिवाय। शिव 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 नमः शिवाय। शिव 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 नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। ओम महेश्वराय। ओम महेश्वराय। ओम महेश्वराय। ओम महेश्वराय। ओम महेश्वराय। आ Shiva, 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 Namah Shivaya. 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 Om 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 Namah Shivaya. If you've got your eyes closed, you can bring your palms together, rub your palms together, and slowly bring it to your eyes. And gently open your eyes.
Now we're on. It was on mute. Welcome to Satsang, and thank you for the beautiful, beautiful sound. You know, they say sound healing, sound bath. But actually all sound becomes a bath. It's just a matter of whether the bath is one that is healing to us, or the bath is one that is not so pleasant for us. And the beauty of this sound experience is something that has not just the ability to sound good, but actually the ability to go within and actually heal us. Sound is an energy. And that energy travels within us and has the beautiful possibility to heal us. So thank you so much for that. We'll begin, as with every night, with a question that's come in advance, and then open it up for any questions that anyone here may have. Is there a way to influence people who refuse to listen to the truth? How to remove the fog of denial? And this question relates specifically, they say, the truth of the impact of animal agriculture. But I'm going to expand it because there's a lot of situations and questions that arise of how do we deal with people who refuse to listen to truth? And how do we remove that fog of denial? And so whether it's about animal agriculture, as the questioner has asked, or whether it's about any one of so many other aspects, how do we do that? And the answer is really, you can't. Unfortunately, you cannot inject someone with truth. You cannot inject someone with openness. You cannot inject them with a willingness to face the facts. You can't do anything like that. And as anyone who has ever tried to convince someone of something knows, it almost never works. There's something very, very interesting about human psychology, but it's very important to realize, because how many people here have ever tried to convince someone else of something? Raise your hand if you've ever tried to convince another person of anything, right? So what most of us realize is it doesn't work. Now, sometimes what you can get is what I call behavior modification. And so if you really try to convince someone of why what they're doing is wrong, you might actually get them to stop doing it. But you're not necessarily, and in most cases you're not at all, going to get them to have the change of how they think that is actually what's so important. And so, for example, parents with children who leave their rooms a mess, let's say. This is always an issue with parents. How do I get my kids to clean up their room? So you can yell at them. You can threaten to punish them. You can do whatever you do to children when they're disobeying orders, and eventually you'll get behavior modification. If every time they leave their jacket on the floor, they get yelled at, or every time they leave their jacket on the floor, they don't get dessert, or they don't get to go out, or they don't get to do what they want, you'll train them. You'll get the behavior modification. But the issue is much deeper than that. It's not actually the jacket on the floor that bothers me so much. If you say to parents, okay, what is it about the messy room that actually bothers you so much? Like, in what worldview is a mess such a sin? And if the parents are honest and they're willing to let you take them through the truth, what you find is that it's not actually the jacket on the floor that bothers them so much. It's that jacket is a symbol of the fact that they get up every day, they work hard, they've earned this money, they've used that money to buy the jacket for the children, and the children leaving it on the floor is a symbol of disrespect for the parents. It's a symbol of lack of appreciation for what their parents have given them. And so every time parents see a messy room, what it means is, you don't respect me, you don't appreciate me, my time and energy doesn't matter to you, and that's actually what hurts us. If you go into a shopping mall, you go to a clothing store, and the person in the dressing room before you left their clothes on the floor, it doesn't bother you. You might say to the person who works there, could you clean these items away before I use it? But you're not going to throw a screaming fit in a shopping mall because the person before you left their jacket on the floor of the dressing room. It's not the actual jacket on the floor that bothers you. It's the jacket on the floor of your child's room because that jacket was bought by you, with money you or your spouse earned. That jacket is a symbol of your love for them. And that's why it bothers us. And so getting them to pick up their clothes because they know if I don't pick up my clothes, mom is going to have a fit and scream and yell, or dad is going to spank me. I mean, who knows what the disciplined way that the family works is. You'll get behavior modification. Fear is a great motivator. But it doesn't actually change how they think. You have not earned their respect. You have not earned their appreciation. You have not earned their love. They are no more grateful to you for getting up every day and going to work to buy them the jacket than they were before when they used to leave it on the floor. All they're doing now is ensuring that you don't throw a fit, that they don't have their dessert taken away, that they don't have their privileges taken away, that they don't get hit. But ultimately, that wasn't what you went into it for. You went into it for appreciation, love, respect, gratitude. And that is not actually something that we can get from anyone. And this is where it's so hard, because we see a truth. And whether it's a truth of an interpersonal relationship, like you throw your jacket, in parentheses, my love, on the floor, or whether it's a truth like eating meat is wrong. Living in that way is wrong. Speaking to people like that is wrong. In either case, here we sit with an awareness of a truth. Some of it's a personal truth, how I want to be treated. Some of it is more of a truth that for us feels objectively right. The problem in both cases is you can't inject it into someone. You cannot convince them of it. You can try. And it's not that you can't sway people. I have certainly had, thankfully, a lot of success with convincing people of what's wrong with animal agriculture, giving them facts, giving them figures, giving them information. But the dilemma with aspects that relate to people's own life is people don't want to change how they live. Asking someone to write a check and donate some money to an environmental organization or a religious organization or an animal protection organization or a remove poverty organization or save water organization, that's easy. Most people are actually ready to do that. But asking people to change how they live, how they eat, how they shop, choices they make every day that feel as personal as what they eat, what they wear, shampoo they use, how they speak to people. These are very personal choices for people. And this is where it's very, very difficult to force people to see the light. Because we have a lot invested in not seeing the light. But here's what's really beautiful. Light itself doesn't actually have to shove itself down people's throat. All light has to do is be light. I remember when I first went back to America after being in India, and I was telling Puja Swamiji how I was going to convince my parents about how wonderful India was and how right this path was. And Puja Swamiji, in his incredible ability to understand situations he's never been in, to understand cultures that, at least in this life, he's never been part of, to understand relationships which, again, at least in this life, he's never had, Nonetheless, he's got this incredible ability to understand and to see it all. And he said to me, do not under any circumstances try to convince them of anything. Just live your truth. The truth is very powerful. And so regardless of whether the truth that you know is a spiritual truth of the existence of God and the meaning of the universe and the truth of who you are, or a truth about how wrong it is to divert the land, the food, the water, the energy of our planet into animal agriculture, or for that matter, into alcoholic beverages. No matter how much you know it is wrong to live in certain ways or speak in certain ways or act in certain ways, rather than trying to shove that down people's throat, just live that truth. Be that light. And that's actually the greatest power that we have. Because the light spreads. A candle, a flame, ultimately engulfs all of that around it. A fire does not have to convince the brush around it, the wood around it, that it's fire. It just has to be fire. And slowly but surely, everything around it is going to become fire. It's going to spread and engulf all of that around it. Light is going to spread to all of that around it. The truth is a magnet that's going to pull those around you to it. Doesn't mean hide it. Doesn't mean don't share what you have found, what you know. But the other important aspect of human psychology is something called rebellion and defense mechanisms. And the more we try to convince people of something, especially when it's something that feels as personal to them as what they eat, how they live, the more they actually are going to rebel against us and pull away and start denying or justifying. And then you actually lose them. Because what ends up happening, the ego is so cunning and so insidious that it actually will create a situation where even if they wanted to believe you, they can't. Because they have created this wall of that defense mechanism and of the rebellion. And so you need to be sure to be gentle enough that people don't get their walls up, that the ego does not erect a wall between you and them. Because the minute I say, oh, all of those, anti-tobacco campaigns are just propaganda, and actually smoking isn't bad, or all of that is just propaganda, it actually isn't true. The minute that I've said this isn't true, you're lying, it's not right, I've erected a wall. And for you to break that wall is going to be much harder in the future. And so we need to just be the light, be the truth, sincerely, strongly, but not in a way that is trying to shove it down other people's throats, that makes them erect their own wall of ego, that then they can't even find a way around it. Even when they want to change, then they can't. And you see this also with children and parents who are deeply spiritual. So many times parents will come to us and say, God, I don't know what to do with my kids. You know, they no longer pray to God. They don't go to temple. They were so good when they were little. Now they've become teenagers or in college. Now they don't want to pray to God. They don't want to do their japa. They don't want to come to mandir. They don't wear the tilak anymore. They've started wearing jeans. Whatever it may be. Help me convince them. And what we always try to help them understand is don't force them. Because if you force them, if you try to push it, you're just going to get their wall of rebellion up even more. And then later on, when they actually want to come back around to spirituality, they will have erected a wall that is so thick that they can't find their way back around it. And that's where it's so important to just keep living the truth, being that light, sharing the truth sincerely, strongly, but not trying to shove it down other people's throats. And then we have faith. We just have faith that the truth, the light, will do its thing the way it always has. Sometimes it takes time, but it always, always, always happens. So I'm happy to take any questions that are here. Yes.
Is it moral to eat meat? Is it moral or immoral to eat meat?
Ah, okay, great. Is it moral or immoral to eat meat? Let me take a step back from this for a moment. When we speak about morality, we have to even understand what framework of morality are we coming at this from? If we're coming at this from a morality that says, because morality requires that we at least agree upon a fundamental set of truths. My morality might be different from your morality, might be different from someone else's morality. So when we're going to talk morality, let's first see what is our fundamental, agreed upon set of truths. So do we agree, for example, that the natural world, the air, the water, the soil, that which this natural creation has given us, has been given to us to share with all of those with whom we share this planet? Or do we believe it has been given to us to gobble up as much as we possibly can, as fast as we possibly can, so that no one else gets any? Anybody think the second option? All right, so we found one place that we all agree. Then we come to another aspect of morality. Do we believe that to the extent possible, wherever possible, we should live lives that are non-violent? That violence is only acceptable when there is absolutely no other option, and only when it is in service of a higher good. So for example, I'm walking down the road, I see a guy mugging an old woman. I use my elbow to hit him to get him off of her because he didn't listen to me yelling. So in that case, violence is in service of a greater good to save the woman. But do we agree that violence is something that should be avoided at all costs wherever possible? Is that something that we all agree on? Good, so that's another fundamental aspect of our morality. Well, even if we don't go further, even if we simply take these two, eating meat becomes not moral. Why does it become not moral? Well, we don't even have to talk about the animals here, because to me that part feels obvious and a given. Everybody knows that in order for us to have a hamburger or a hot dog or a piece of chicken or a piece of fish, that the animal had to die. I mean, we all know that. Everybody understands that nobody gives them anesthesia before they get killed. We all understand that none of the cows are, first injected with anesthesia before they're killed. We know that. So we know there was violence in that. But if people are still eating meat, what it means is that that's not enough of a reason. And so I don't even go there, because that to me feels like the most obvious. If that to you is violent, you're already a vegetarian. If you're not a vegetarian, clearly that doesn't bother you. So we take it to a different level. And the level that we take it to is the level that we just spoke about, which is violence to not just the animal who's given its life, but violence to those we share this planet with. So for example, it takes 16 kilograms of grain, means rice, wheat, corn, soy, to make 1 kilogram of meat. Okay? 16 kilograms to 1 kilogram, or 16 pounds to 1 pound. Either way, ratio of 16 to 1. But if instead of turning it into meat, I'm going to make it vegetarian food, so I'm going to make it bread or pasta or rice or chapatis or whatever it may be, it's a ratio of 1 to 1. 1 kg of wheat gives me 1 kg of bread or 1 kg of pasta. But I need 16 pounds of it to give me a kg of meat. Why? Well, because the animals, most of what they eat, they digest. You don't get a pound of animal fat out of every pound of grain you fed it. Most of it gets digested. Some of it comes out the other end as defecation. But at the end of the day, when that animal is finally killed, for every pound of meat that you get out, you have put in approximately 16 pounds of grain. What that means is that every time you eat meat, you're essentially eating the grain of 15 other people. Now, if there weren't any starving people in our world, you'd say, okay. But tens of thousands of children are dying of starvation every day. More than 1 billion people sleep hungry every night. So in what world? In what world of morality? In what world of spirituality? In what world of any kind of dharma or ethics or morals do we believe that we are entitled to the food of 15 other people? Let them starve. Let them die. I want to have a hamburger. There's no moral ground that says, oh, you are the one God has deemed worthy of the food of 15 other people. There's no scripture I've ever read in any religion that says, if you can grab it, it's yours. All of the scriptures teach us, share, share, share. So that's food. Look at water. Well, in 10 years, by 2030, India is only going to have half the water it needs. By 2040, the world will have half the water it needs. What that means is that basically half the people will have no water. Because unfortunately, that's how distribution works. It's not going to be that every person on earth only gets a glass of water 50% of the time they need it. Or that when they turn on their tap, water only comes out half the time. Basically, what it's going to mean is the people who can continue to afford the water will have it, and half the people will have basically none. The amount of water that goes into the production of a pound of beef, like a meal of beef, sit down for hamburgers with friends, couple of friends, the amount of water that goes into that meal is the same amount of water that you use in bathing for 6 months. If you bathe every day, and if you bathe not from a bucket like we do here, but actually from a shower head where water keeps pouring down on you, you're going to use about 10,000 liters, about 2,500 gallons of water in 6 months. That's how much water goes into the production of a pound of beef. So the question becomes, are you prepared to refrain from bathing for 6 months to offset the water every time you eat meat? And for chicken, it's about 1/3, so you'd only have to go without bathing for 2 months. So every time you sit down to a meal of chicken, are you prepared to not bathe for 2 months? And if not, then in what world, in what morality do you deserve the water that irrigates these farmers' fields, that quenches these people's thirst, that's going to keep these people alive? That's not the morality we just agreed upon. I'll give you just one more fact. The single greatest contributor to climate change is animal agriculture. So whether you look at carbon dioxide emissions, methane emissions, it's animal agriculture. And so again, in what world are we entitled to steal the future from our children? In what morality does time end with us? Do we have no responsibility to leave a world in which our children can breathe? And if you believe that we do, then we absolutely have to stop eating meat. That's what makes it immoral. So it's not a religious aspect. Because here's the thing, if you thought the cow was holy, you'd already be a vegetarian. And so people who are not, clearly, it's not a religious issue for them, which is fine. Religion doesn't have to be the reason that we do everything. But even if we don't believe the cow is holy, certainly we believe that our sisters and brothers on planet Earth, living today, living tomorrow, our children, our grandchildren, deserve food to eat, deserve water to drink, deserve a world that hasn't been decimated by climate change. And if we believe that, then it's not moral to eat meat. Other questions? Yeah.
We have been talking about karma and its effects, and also Bhagavad.
Yes.
So they say ki, when there is a karma, it is bound to have its fruit, unavoidable, bitter or sweet whatsoever. Then one theory comes, it says three types of karmas are there. I don't know the names. So I think prarabdha can't be destroyed, but the other ones can be destroyed. They say that kind of thing. But I love when Krishna says in his last shloka, Sarva papebhyo. Like he's very clear, I'll free you of
Everything.
all sins.
Everything.
All.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay. So great. All right. So for those of you not that familiar with the Gita or the Sanskrit, the bottom line is, if we say that the fruits of karma are unavoidable, but in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna basically says, come to me and I free you of all of that. where do those two things come together? Okay. So we have what we call laws of nature. The law of karma is one of them. Plant an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree. Okay? Law of nature. Cannot get an orange tree from it, it's only going to give you an apple tree. That which I've done is going to have its impact. If I take this glass of water and I turn it upside down and pour it on my head, I will have wet hair. Right? The action, the karma of pouring the glass of water is going to give me the fruit, which is I will have wet hair. Whether it's temporary, whether it's permanent, either way, nonetheless, that fruit has to happen. There's no law of nature that's going to stop that water midway and not wet my hair. And on the deeper levels, all of that which we put out, those seeds that we plant, are going to bear fruit. But then we also have what we call grace. And this is where the power of the divine has that power. Otherwise, when we talk about come to Mother Ganga, right? Have a bath in Ganga. And that karma is purified. Well, if it were impossible to purify anything, how could Mother Ganga be the great purifier, right? This is the power of grace. But what's required? You've given us the very end of the Gita. But before we get there, what's the prerequisites? Surrender. Surrender fully. Unto me all of it. Realize that you are just a tool in my hands. And that is why he removes the karma. This is, earlier in the Gita, when he's speaking, when Lord Krishna is speaking about karma, and Arjuna says, well then, so what's the answer? If doing good things is going to give me good fruits, doing bad things is going to give me bad fruits, but if these two things don't cancel each other out, if the pluses and the minuses don't cancel each other out the way they do in my bank account, and I have to keep coming back life after life until my karmic bank account is cleared, whether it's the good or the bad, the sweet or the bitter, then what's the answer? I'll just not act. Right? And that's when Lord Krishna says, no such luck. Because even in not acting, you're still acting. And this is when Arjuna says, well then, so what is the answer? If doing good deeds gets me good fruit, doing bad deeds gets me bad fruit, even I sit on my hands, I do no deeds, I'm still accruing fruit. What's the answer? And that's when Lord Krishna says the only answer is surrender to me. Realize you are not the doer. And that's what comes in the Gita before the end. When you surrender it all to God, then it's not about you as Nitin, doing and accruing. Nitin has no bank account then, because you're not earning for yourself. When you're doing, then you're accruing. But if you're not the doer, if you literally are just a tool in God's hands, just are so aligned that you're a vessel through which it flows. Look, let's say that I sat here and into this microphone, I said something really horrible. And someone in the audience got really angry at what I said. And then I ran away. that person who was really angry would not pick up this microphone, let's say I left it behind when I ran away, would not pick up this microphone and start breaking it into 1,000 pieces. It would come after me. It would understand, yeah, the mic is why I heard it. The mic is the thing that made it come through that speaker, and that's why I heard it. But it's not really the mic's fault, right? She was the one who spoke it. The mic is just the tool. And if I said something really beautiful, and you were really happy, I've never once seen anybody after satsang come up and, give the mic a hug and say, wow, thank you so much. That was so great. No one ever tries to steal the mic to take home because then, they'll be able to take satsang home with them. Because we know it's just a tool. Well, in the same way, we are just tools. Just as silly as it would be for the mic to stand up after a lecture and take a bow, say, wasn't I great? It would be just as silly for the speaker to stand up and take a bow. It would be just as foolish for me after satsang to say, wasn't I great? As it would be for the mic to say, wasn't I great? Because as we all realize the mic is a tool in my hands, well, in the same way, I'm just being used by the divine. And so when you live your life as that tool, as that microphone, in the hands of God, you're not accruing karma. If I took a microphone and incited people to violence, the police would never come and arrest the microphone. It's a tool in my hands. It's not going to accrue good or bad karmic fruit based on how I use it. In the same way, if you really allow yourself to be a tool in God's hands, and this is the teaching, when Lord Krishna says, just surrender to me. Just be a tool in my hands. Well, then you're not accruing for yourself. You're just the vehicle and the vessel. But there were lots of verses, 600 and many verses before Lord Krishna got to that part that he had to make sure Arjun got before he told him that. Because otherwise it becomes a license to complacency. It becomes a license to recklessness. It becomes a license of, well, I was just a tool in God's hands. God must have told me to hit you. God must have told me to, steal from you, sleep with your wife, do all sorts of horrible things. God must have told. I'm just a tool in God's hands. So then it becomes just a license to recklessness, decadence, everything. That's why he didn't begin with that. The prerequisite to come to me and I will take care of everything is, but make sure you got all the first 600 plus verses. Then when you come to me, I will purify you. It's like Puja Swamiji says, people come and they have a bath in Ganga. But if they walk out of Ganga the same as they walked into Ganga, it's not that Ganga's purified them. If you walk out of Ganga and, criticize the guy sitting on the path or somebody who's in your way, that bath has not just absolved you. You're not starting at zero again. Ganga's not, a get out of jail free card that you get to just keep starting over. Ganga, the power of grace, requires an inner transformation. The reason that Ganga works as the purifier is because she purifies our minds. She purifies who we are when we bathe in her. The us who emerges from Ganga is different than the us who goes into Ganga. So if you emerge from Ganga transformed, then it works. Then it's that fresh start. But here's the other thing. There's still, even in situations like that, even with grace, there still is karma. There still is karma that has to be worked out. And this is why our scriptures give it to us like that. If you take the Ramayana is my favorite example of this, because it's just full of beautiful ways of understanding how grace interacts with the law of karma. So you've got Lord Ram, you've got God on earth. And you've got all of these karmic threads from Shravan Kumar and Shravan Kumar's parents and Ram's father and all of these pieces that come together. Sita and the bird and the whole, when you actually look at the Ramayana and you wonder, why did this happen and why did that happen? We've got God here. Well, yeah, you've got God, but we've got threads of karma. That just because there's grace, it doesn't mean that karma dissolves. When Lord Krishna says, I take care of it, it doesn't mean I rewrite history and undo it all. What it means is you won't suffer in that way. And so, for example, one of the ways that we speak about it a lot is you think about, okay, let's say that the karmic fruit of something that has to happen to you is an accident, okay? Cannot be undone. That arrow has already left the bow. Okay? It has already been fired. You cannot call it back. The end result of that arrow is accident. But along the path of that arrow, grace comes. The guru comes. Well, instead of maybe a tragic accident, instead of maybe an accident in which you lost your life, you stub your toe. So the accident happened, but you didn't die from it. You weren't paralyzed from it. Instead, you stubbed your toe. Sometimes also, it'll come in a dream instead. So sometimes people will wake up and they'll say, oh my God, I had this dream of an accident. Does that mean it's going to happen? Well, dreams are not always prophetic. In some cases, they actually are the way that grace works through us to give us that fruit of the karma without the suffering. So maybe you'll have a dream of the accident. It still happened on some level. But this is how grace has come in and taken care of it. So I will take care of it does not mean I will rewind and rewrite your history. Otherwise, Bhagwan Ram could have very easily said, oh, my dear father, don't worry about any of that. We're just going to rewind all of that. We're going to undo Shravan Kumar and his parents, and we're just going to undo it all. And then I get to be coronated as king. But he didn't. Because the arrow has left the bow. But the way the threads interweave together is a way that brings us the divinity of the Ramayana, rather than, a Shakespearean tragedy, for example. Right? Two different ways, two different types of stories. Families, drama, jealousy. The ingredients are quite similar. But what do we have in the Ramayana? The presence of grace that renders what otherwise would have been a tragic drama into actually a story that thousands and thousands and thousands of years later is continuing to be recited, not as what not to do, not how to not live so that your life ends up like Hamlet's or Macbeth's, but actually how to live. How does the tragic hero become actually the one who is the symbol of, the epitome of, the embodiment of all of that we strive to be? That's the power of grace. That's when grace intersects with karmic threads. Is it takes what otherwise would have been a tragic drama and turns it into the great spiritual epic of inspiration. And so this is what grace does. The arrows that have left the bows, that's still going to be there. But when you've surrendered to God, when that power of grace is there, then it ends up not as a tragic drama, but it ends up as an opportunity for an epic of inspiration and transformation.
What I understood, Sadhviji, is the arrow has left the bow, but when grace mixes, it becomes flower kind of.
Beautiful. Sure.
So intensity of can reduce the intensity.
Sure. Wonderful. The arrow becomes the flower. Good. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow.